Welcome to Spiritual Psychology. My name's Renee McKenna. I'm a therapist and healer in San Francisco. And today I want to talk about emotional honesty. And being emotionally honest is different than just not lying. A lot of times when we think about honesty, we think about not lying or telling the truth. But emotional honesty is kind of the next level. Emotional honesty is about being willing to bring forth what is within us to those around us, whether they ask us or not. Sharing with others vulnerably and authentically what's happening with our internal self is really the key to intimacy. Intimacy can mean into me you see. I love that. Intimacy being into me you see. So true intimacy really being connected with people, which is what most of us want. We want to be loved, we want to be connected and feel secure attachment to people. But a lot of times we want that without discomfort. I remember years ago, I saw this fabulous little cartoon, and it was somebody sitting on a meditation cushion, and they were saying, "Oh God, I give myself to you. Show me how you want me to be. I surrender my life as long as it doesn't cause me any pain or discomfort." A lot of times we want the good stuff without having to pay any price. You know, what the price is really is our own purification. The price generally of anything is to let go of things we don't need anymore anyway. So when things are uncomfortable, it's usually an opportunity to grow. Emotional honesty is always an opportunity to grow. If I can deepen my communication with other people, if I can deepen my sharing, then it really calls us both to grow, and certainly calls any relationship, not just romantic relationship, it calls any relationship to grow. You know, there's a lot of ancient wisdom around human behavior because in a lot of ways we really haven't changed that much. At least the call to be who we most deeply are, the call to joy and fulfillment, to being our best selves, that has not changed too much in humanity. One of my favorite quotes around emotional honesty comes from the Gnostic Gospels. And the Gnostic Gospels were these long buried secret writings attributed to the followers of Jesus. And in 1945, there was 52 papyrus texts, including these Gospels and other secret documents, were found concealed in these earthenware jars buried in the Egyptian desert. They have been culminated into a book called The Gnostic Gospels by Elaine Pagels, and other people have written about them. You know, the Bible is really much more like a library than a book. It's a combination of tons of different writings from lots of different people at different periods of time. There was a lot of editing decisions that had to be made when the Bible was put together. So these are some of the texts that didn't make the first cut into the Bible, apparently. So this is from the Gospel of Thomas, from the Gnostic Gospels. And it says, "If you bring forth what is within you will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you." In my therapeutic work, in my own personal growth work, I know that this is true, that we often hold on to the worst items in stock. We often hold on to our selfishness, our wounding, our fears. We don't want people to see the things about us that are underdeveloped or imperfect. When we hide things, when we keep them in the dark, then they have no opportunity to grow. They have no opportunity to heal. They have no opportunity to transform. When we keep things in the dark, they generally stay secret and hidden and frozen, and they don't move. The work is to be willing to bring everything into the light. Light is the only thing that dispels the darkness. We often have fear that the darkness that's within us or difficult feelings or vulnerable feelings, our head will tell us, oh, there's nothing good to come from talking about this, or I don't want this person to know this thing about me. When we withhold important parts of ourselves, important feelings from ourselves, we're actually robbing other people of the opportunity to be intimate with us, to know us fully. Most people have some inner voice that says, if you really knew me, you wouldn't love me. And yet, what we do is we reinforce that idea by not actually sharing all of who we are with other people. So even if people love us and tell us they think we're wonderful, we can tell ourselves, yeah, but there's a lot you don't know. And what we're doing with that is we're actually reinforcing the idea that we're unlovable. We're living in fear that who we really are is unacceptable, and we're actually keeping the things that we are most ashamed of or often have the least amount of hope about. We're keeping those things secret. We're keeping them locked away and frozen, and they'll never, ever change. So most of us have this idea that if we hide our fears and our wounds and our hurts, that somehow we're keeping ourselves safe. And, as children or coming up in dysfunctional systems, sure, that might have been true. But as we start to move out into the world as young adults, and certainly as full adults, if something hurts, it needs attention. And these old survival skills that we have often just keep us repeating the patterns that we most deeply want to avoid, which is some terrible tragedy that happens of repeating our own patterns. And emotional honesty is one of the quickest ways to get out of old patterns. The idea of being vulnerable can be really scary to people. A lot of times we tend to think of being vulnerable as being weak. What we're doing is we might be revealing our weakness. Really what we're doing is we're revealing our humanity. And when we reveal our humanity, that's an opportunity for intimacy, because then it deepens the conversation for everyone and gives other people an opportunity to be intimate, to be vulnerable as well. So when I can make a space that's safe for myself to be vulnerable, then I'm actually making a space for other people to be vulnerable too. When we can reveal our deeper self, our softer self, again, that's the place of intimacy. Into me, you see. Allowing other people to see into us and being willing to see into them from a place of compassion and love and kindness and understanding and not taking things personally is really the gift of the best parts of humanity. Vulnerability is the path of strength. It takes tremendous courage and fortitude and willingness and willpower to often be emotionally honest, to be vulnerable. So the idea that vulnerability is actually weakness is crap. As a person who spent a lot of time in her life trying to be invulnerable and trying to be a tough guy, I know that the path of vulnerability is actually a much, much more powerful, more strengthening. The path of vulnerability, the path of emotional honesty, is the path of a spiritual warrior. And you're going to need all the resources that you have to be able to tell the truth. But the victories that you get are unbelievable. And the price of not being emotionally honest is intense. That's why this saying from the Gospel of Thomas feels so true for me. As when I was active in my addiction, when I was active in my deepest dysfunction, I had so much pain and suffering, so much rage and guilt. All of my acting out and all of my crazy behavior was really ways to try to manage this stuff that felt unmanageable within me. And it was only by lots of brilliant, brave people showing me how to tell the truth that I could start to empty out all that garbage that was inside me. I love the idea that garbage turns into compost. And when we can bring that garbage out, now there may be people who don't want to hear it, and there may be people who can't hang with that. Do we want to energy match those people? Do we want to energy match people who want only everything to be nice and to be on the surface. If you want that, you probably don't want to listen to this podcast. So what is energy matching? Energy matching is if you're driving down the street and someone drives by you and thinks that you cut them off and they give you the middle finger, and then you just immediately get mad and give them the middle finger back. Or maybe you get scared, and underneath their anger, they probably were scared too that you cut them off, and so you get scared too. It's very easy to energy match people emotionally. If someone's angry, you'll tend to get angry. If someone's happy, you can often tend to get happy. If you pay attention to that, it's interesting. It's very easy to energy match down. It's very easy for lower resonances for us to just drop right into our animal brain and go into rage or fear. That's a lot of how the news preys on people, and there's a lot of energy matching happening in media. The challenge is to hold your own energetic resonance, to hold your own emotional resonance, and not energy match down. To actually call other people to energy match up to you. To resonate on a higher emotional or energetic plane is, again, compassion, love, kindness, understanding, patience, forgiveness, tolerance. To be able to hold that place, which is more of like a wisdom. It's more of a vulnerable place, actually, but it's more open and grounded. It's solid. It's also happier, more pleasant. When we can hold our resonance, when we can be open and honest, we're actually calling other people to resonate in the same resonance with us. There's a saying that lobsters will drag other lobsters down. I'm from Boston. We have lobsters, and they keep them in big tanks, and they're alive because you only cook them when they're alive, which is a terrible thing. But anyway, so there's a saying that if lobsters will try to crawl out of the tank, and the other lobsters will pull them back down. It goes with the idea that misery loves company, that low resonances tend to want to drag other people down to them. When somebody's gossiping, and it might feel icky when they're doing it, but it's so easy to just slide right into gossiping with them rather than to say, geez, that feels uncomfortable talking bad about that person. I don't think I want to do that. But what you do when you're emotionally honest like that, when you really feel what's happening in your body and honor that, is you're calling the other person up to a higher resonance, to be in more integrity, to be, again, kinder, more loving, more forgiving, whatever that resonance is. So depends what you want to bring into the world. That's up to you. But emotional honesty really, for me, has become a practice and a path. Over the years, as I've done my own work, over and over again, when I look at kind of what the core issue is in relationship with me, it's almost always that I'm not telling my own truth, that I'm withholding the truth. And why do I do that? Because I want to be in control. If you knew everything, then I can't manipulate the situation. When I really show up and am emotionally honest, I'm actually giving up control. I am surrendering myself and what's true about me to this other person. And really, that's how, from my perspective, that's how God works best, is through our own bodies, through our own emotions. We're all little pieces of consciousness expressing themselves in the world. And I consider myself like an aspect of God. You're an aspect of God, all the people. If I'm withholding what's actually true, then I'm trying to play God. I'm trying to manipulate the situation. It's very understandable and very human to do that. But generally what happens when I'm trying to manipulate by withholding the truth is that I end up repeating the patterns that have been in my life, because generally when I'm trying to manipulate and control, it's based on fear. It's based on some idea that I'm not going to get what I really want if I tell the truth. My experience is that the truth always comes out in the long run. And it either comes out straight or it comes out sideways. I had an experience just this week. I have a friend, we've been dear friends for 17 years. Our children grew up together. And we had a conversation the other day. And she said something offhandedly. And we kind of laughed about it, but ooh, it really felt like a dig. I was like, oh, I didn't notice it too much till like after we get off the phone. Don't you hate it when that happens? You have something happen and then you're like, oh, it's much later that it kind of hits you. So we get off the phone and it really tweaked me. I always ask myself, is it worth it to talk about it? Is this my problem, or is this something that needs to be talked about? I think that's the first stage of discernment. Is this just my own sensitivity? Is this something that I need to try to work through, with my own people, or do I need to bring this to the person? I have a 3-day rule that if something bothers me for 3 days, I have to say something about it. Otherwise, it's just going to go underground and become a resentment. And those always come out sideways. But sometimes I don't need 3 days. So with this, I knew, this feels bad. I started to have the conversation with her in my head. You know how you do that? You have the conversation with the person in your head and you tell them all the things that you want to say, and then they talk back to you, but they really aren't even there. So, and that conversation continued, and I knew I needed to have it directly with her. But gosh, it's hard. I called her. She wasn't available. We had to set up another time to talk. I was nervous. I could feel it. But that kind of fear is so important, to be able to face my own fear of vulnerability. And this is the place often of genuine intimacy. So, I started off the conversation kind of casual. She's on vacation. How was your vacation? And then I had to say, hey, you said this thing the other day and it really bugged me. And she said, oh, I knew it at the time, right when I said it, because she's emotionally honest too. Thank goodness, because some people might say, oh, I didn't say that, or, oh, that's not what I meant. But she said, no, I felt it at the time. I actually tried to clean it up when we were talking. I missed that part somehow. But what it did was it opened up this whole hour-long, much deeper conversation about this kind of larger dynamic that's been happening with us for the last year and a half. There's been some changes socially. We aren't seeing each other as much as we did, and there's some ways that we haven't been able to connect in the way that we used to. It was this amazing conversation. As we poked into it, she actually had some judgment about me, and I did feel that, and that was true, and we understood what that was about. And she was able to talk about kind of what her process was around it. And I was able to talk about what's true for me. We're different. We're two different people. She has some different opinions about some of the things I'm doing, and she would do them differently. We were able to just make room for all of that. We don't have to be the same. And her judgment dissolved as we came to just kind of an agreement that we're different and that it's okay to be different. And sometimes that's uncomfortable. And she was a little worried about me, that I feel like I'm living exactly the way that I want to live. And she respects that. It ended up from this, what could have become actually a wedge between us, because I felt it. I was like, ooh, if she judges me, then I don't want to talk to her about this and that. And I started to go into that defensive place of wanting to protect myself, and I'll just distance myself from her. And she's one of my dearest friends. She's amazing. Knows me deeply. I know she loves me. And so we have a choice. Do I want to keep myself safe, or am I willing to take the risk of emotional honesty? My experience is that emotional honesty will always bring you to a deeper, more powerful place. The issue is you don't have control. Now, I think that's good news, because most of us are not very good controllers of our life. And so if I'm willing to open up with the principle of honesty, I'm actually resonating up from a place of fear. If I'm willing to take the risk and tell people the truth, let them see who I really am. Now, we don't know what's going to happen with that, but I actually find that kind of interesting and exciting, to go and step into the unknown and what does life want to bring me. So it can't be understated that emotional honesty is taking responsibility for our own feelings. How and when we tell the truth is very important, and so are our motives, because we can use the idea of emotional honesty as a justification to blame and shame other people. I know for myself, I had times when it was like, oh, you want me to tell the truth? Oh, I'm going to tell you the truth. And I'll tell you all the things that I don't like about you and all the things that you did that I feel like harmed me. So we can use the idea of emotional honesty as a way to justify blaming and shaming other people, as a way to get power out of disempowering others. So if I'm not using I statements, I'm not actually being emotionally honest. Calling it emotional honesty when I tell you everything that's wrong with you, or all the ways that you hurt my feelings, or all the stuff that you did that made me feel bad, that's not actually emotional honesty in the way that I'm talking about it. We can use the idea of emotional honesty as a way to justify harming other people and acting out, putting a bad motive under a good one. So how we tell the truth and when we tell the truth and why we tell the truth are all really important. Genuine emotional honesty is about my own growth and sharing with another person without an agenda. It's about talking about how I feel and what my inner experience is, just to self-reveal, not to get them to change. If I need you to change so that I'll feel better, that's a problem. So truly sharing just so that the other people have the information, rather than sharing to get them to do something or be different, is really what emotional intimacy and what emotional honesty is about. When I want other people to change so that I'll feel better, I'm in a place of weakness. Real power lies in the ability and the willingness to change myself. And emotional honesty is an opportunity to be changed by the experience and the exchange with the other person, rather than trying to get them to change. So I had to put that in there. It feels really important, because we can always justify a bad motive with a good one if we're not careful. You know, it was really through emotional honesty that my ex-husband and I came to the decision that our relationship needed to change, that we needed to get divorced and just be co-parents of our children. And the clarity in our relationship now is unbelievable. I'm so grateful. He is like the most, he's an amazing guy. He has incredible integrity. He's a great dad. He was a great husband to me in the time period that we were together. And now we're able to still be generous and kind and respectful to each other, and have this emotion because of this emotional honesty. And was it scary? Yes. And I want to end with the story just from that place. So I knew the marriage was over, and I knew I needed to tell him. We had been having lots of conversations. This was not coming out of the blue. We'd been in therapy for years, and I had come to a place kind of being unhappy enough that I needed to be emotionally honest. So I was at a group, and we were doing some personal growth work. And I met this guy I'd never met before, and we were on a break. We went and had a meal, and he said, "So how are you?" And I decided to be emotionally honest, and I told him, "I'm thinking about leaving my marriage. I'm really stressed." And I really told him the whole situation, and he listened very patiently, and he said, "Geez, my parents got divorced when I was 12. It was terrible." And I was like, "Oh," because my daughter was 12 at the time, and I was thinking, "Oh my God, this is my worst fear, right? I don't want to hurt my kids." And so we had this really great conversation. I've actually never seen the guy since. He was actually from New York, and we're in San Francisco. But anyway, so I started to ask him questions, and I said, "So what would you have liked for your parents to do when they got divorced? What would have made that better for you?" And he just laid out this, like, so clear exactly what he wished his parents said to him, which they didn't. It was a terrible divorce. They used him in court, and it was awful and traumatic for him. And, he said to me, "Oh, what I wish my parents said to me was, this has nothing to do with you. We love you. We're going to care for you. That this is grown-up problems, and we're going to take care of them amongst ourselves. You don't need to worry about anything. Our primary concern is your health and care and well-being, and we're here for you no matter what." That's what I wish my parents said to me. So that night, I went home, And I had the opportunity, and I was able to say to Mike, you know, I was able to say to Mike, you know, I think we're done. And it wasn't a shock. And he said, okay, what are we going to do? And I said, I have no idea, but we'll figure it out. And about 3 hours later, I was upstairs and getting ready for bed. And my daughter came in and she said, Mom, I have to talk to you about something. I read a text on your phone last week that said that you're really unhappy in your marriage. Is that true? Oh my God. And I was able to say to her, yes, it is true. And she said, does Dad know? And I was able to say to her, yes, Dad knows. And unbelievably, so supportedly, because the universe is amazing, I had in my back pocket a script practically written out that this man had given me just hours before. And I was able to say to her, this has nothing to do with you. These are grown-up problems, and we love you, and we're going to care for you, and your health and well-being is the most important thing to us. And you don't need to worry, because we're going to work it out and in a way that you're cared for and everybody's good. Oh my God. Because I had been emotionally honest with that man, he gave me exactly what I needed to say. When my daughter confronted me, because she found out the truth, not me expecting that, didn't have anything to do with me that she read a text, I was able to be honest with her. Because I had been honest with my ex-husband, I was able to tell her, yes, Dad knows. So it wasn't like she had information before he did. And I was able to tell her exactly what I believe she needed to hear. God gave me those words to be able to offer my daughter so that this experience could be okay for her. And my kids, you know, everybody ends up in therapy, I think. My kids, I have weathered this really well. We have done the best we can to be able to be there for those children and uphold that script that I said to her, and to be able to love and care for them. And, you know, we're still co-parenting, and my kids are with my ex-husband right now, and I'll be with them later today. And it's really moved forward in this amazing way that I couldn't even have imagined. I had tremendous fear about leaving this marriage. And because of the practice of emotional honesty, I feel like we've been able to navigate it we've been able to navigate it in this amazingly graceful way. Graceful in movement, but also grace-filled, because grace moves through truth, grace moves through honesty, grace moves through our own deepest self if we're willing to reveal it and bring it into the world. And so I'll leave you. If I ever have an epitaph, if they ever bury me, this is what I want on my gravestone. Show up, tell the truth, and leave the results to God. That's the practice of emotional honesty. Show up, tell the truth, and leave the results to God. This is Renee McKenna with Spiritual Psychology. If you want to book a session with me, shoot me an email at info@reneemckenna.com. You can pick up my new book, Allies and Demons, Working with Spirit for Power and Healing, on Amazon or on my website at reneemckenna.com. Blessings on your path until we meet again.